I can't believe you have a quarterback. It's Chicago! Man, that was way too close for comfort, but hey, a win's a win. It always will be a win, and I will definitely take a win. The Bears win 24-20 over the New York Giants in a bit of a nail-biter, but hey, when it comes down to the fourth quarter and we need someone there to make a play, Caleb Williams is there. That guy was clutch today. There is something to be said about this team's ability to win one-score games and to continue to win tight games. Not just one-score games that become one-score games after a late touchdown. We're talking about games where this team needs to lead a drive to go take the lead in the final 5 minutes. And this team has succeeded time and time again this season. Forget week 1. Week 1 happened. That sucks. They've won 4 one-possession games since then. This team continues to find way in one-possession games. Caleb Williams has led game-winning drives in 4 of his last 6 starts. The guy is continuing to find ways to win. The Bears have won 5 of their last 6. Actually, no, they've won 6 of their last 7 games. They're 6-3 on the season now after starting the season 0-2. Gotta say, despite it being a little close, I'm still happy this team comes away with a win. Look, does this win tell me that this team is going to be contending for the NFC this season? No, because it's a 2-7 Giants team without their starting running back and top receiver. And it does not even get into the fact that their starting quarterback got hurt and sat out the fourth quarter. So there's that. But all things considered, this team continues to show resilience when they're faced with adversity. So many Bears teams in the past would have lost that game. Absolutely. But this Bears team, despite keeping it way closer than it should have been, still ends up finding ways to win. And there has to be some sort of credit given to this coaching staff to find ways to win despite problems. And I've been saying it for the last month. This team continuing to find ways to win despite mistakes, shortcomings, struggles, you name it. This team's playing well through adversity. This team is not quitting. This team is not going to give up. And I love that. Look, here's another perspective on it. In order to beat the great teams, you're going to have to beat the bad teams. In order to come back against the good teams, you have to find a way to come back against bad teams. Because if this team were to have lost their game against the Raiders, or lost this game, or lost to the Bengals and let the onside kick and those atrocious performances ruin the day, this is a completely different conversation we're having. We're talking about 6-3 versus 3-6. But again, you find ways to win. Because again, we're still trying to find the identity of this team. Usually teams will have their identity at this point. I think this team has a lot of room to grow. I think they're coming into their harder part of their schedule, so we'll see what they have in store for us. But just in the grand scheme of things, not even just concerned with this year, but for the future, this is a massive character-building year, identity-building year. And what I'm getting right now is that a Ben Johnson-led Bears team is not going to quit, is not going to surrender. Doesn't matter how many points they're down by, they're going to continue to be aggressive and fight to the end. They're not going to let up. They're a group of guys who are determined to do everything they can to win. And that, to me, matters so much more than just straight talent. Because it's not just the players who are out on the field. It's the way that the players interact with each other on a regular basis. It's how the coaches bring them up and develop them. It's how the organization themselves brings in some of these new guys to bring inspiration to the locker room or whatever. It is an organizational thing, and the turnaround that I see from just the body language of all of these players is a complete 180. Because the team is winning, who cares how they're winning? They're winning, and you can tell these guys are just excited. Their body language is so much better. They're around a coach they want to play for. They're around an organization now that feels like they're starting to care now. I think that there is a lot that is changing in this organization for the better at long last. And look, who knows? Maybe the death of Virginia McCaskey is playing a role in the team's turnaround this year. because it really does feel like this team is really taking priority with the actual team and not just kind of going through the motions, collecting a paycheck type of thing, right? I mean, I saw more emotion from George McCaskey after they beat the Bengals last week while he was in the tunnel as the Hail Mary pass was picked off than I've ever seen him display before. That, to me, is a sign of an owner that's starting to care. I'm not going to completely let him off the hook yet because he has a massive legacy of failure going right now. But maybe something is changing as a byproduct of Virginia's death. But I'm not going to get too superstitious around here. I'm going to look at what's going on the field right now. And right now, the on-field product is not too bad. Look, and to those people who are complaining about the fact that they didn't beat them by 3 scores, and I'm like, yeah, there's some room for criticism and room for discussion about the fact that this team has been squeaking by teams that really aren't very good this season, but at the end of the day, they are still winning. That, to me, is the big thing. Yeah, they should be beating teams like the Raiders and the Giants by more points, but they have found ways to win regardless. Despite some shortcomings and despite some challenges, the team's fighting its way through adversity against bad teams. And as this team grows together, as this coaching staff is here for longer, it's going to continue to get better. And next thing you know, if the progression and the development continues to go the way that we expect it to go, this team's going to start playing very well against the better teams in the league. And this is going to be a contender. So I implore you, if you're frustrated at a win, just give it some patience. I know that some people really hate the word patience when it comes to sports, but this is a year and a moment where I think you need some patience because Caleb Williams had a pretty good game today. You're like, the completion percentage. Caleb Williams isn't dropping passes. His completion percentage could be better, yes. But at the end of the day, he led 2 touchdown drives in the final 5 minutes to win this football game. Look, there are a lot of things that statistics can show us about a game, a season, a player, a team, an organization, a league, you name it. But there is a point in time where you have to balance the strict box score watching and statistics for the eye test. And Caleb Williams absolutely passed the eye test today. There were so many passes that were on the money and dropped by his receivers because of poor conditions. Olamide Zaccheaus had an exceptionally bad game with at least 3 drops I can think of off the top of my head. 1 in the end zone, which would have gone for like a 35-yard touchdown pass. Great throw. It was literally in his hands. Touched probably all 10 fingers. Goes right goes back out. Incomplete. Had a drop on a 3rd down on a really well-placed ball at the sticks. Dropped it. Had a drop late in the game against in the middle of the field. Like, he just dropped it. In an intermediate pass. Like, 3 crucial drops for Olamide Zaccheaus in this game. DeAndre Swift had a drop on a 4th down play that turned to a turnover on downs. Kyle Monunga had a drop in this game. The Bears receivers were not hauling in the football in this one, and it really hurt their team's chances. But that being said, I was very impressed with how some receivers played despite this. Rome Odunze had a nice bounce-back game after having no catches last week against Cincinnati. Had 6 catches for over 80 yards, and he caught a touchdown pass. But I want to give a shout-out to Colston Loveland again. Didn't see a ton of targets, but he came through in a couple big moments. 4 targets, 4 catches. I really want to think about him catching that pass on 3rd and 10 with about 5 minutes to go on a 3rd down where Caleb's extending the play, and he just hangs on to it. It's a tough catch to make, and the Bears ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. So, like I say, I'm very, very happy with the involvement for Colston Loveland. And then, of course, Luther Burden having a nice game. I really do think this is a game that can prove to this coaching staff that Luther Burden should be getting more reps than Olamide Zaccheaus, because he also had 3 targets and 3 catches for 51 yards. And I know a lot of people are going to talk about this play right here. First play after on what would be the Bears' game-winning drive. Williams finds Luther Burden down the field. He makes the catch at about like the 25-yard line, or no, probably about the 30-yard line. And I mean, seriously, there are 2 Giants who have them dead to rights. And he bulldozes through, like literally lowers the shoulder and just keeps the legs moving for another like 7 or 8 yards. It was unreal. The guy was hungry, and he made a big play in a big moment, which then set up the Caleb Williams rushing touchdown for the win. And I want to go back to the quarterback here. And I'm not going to talk about the passing game here for a moment. I want to talk about some other things about Caleb Williams' game. Running the football, when he was scrambling and running, it felt like he was doing a better job with that today. There were definitely some examples of him avoiding sacks and then still trying to play hero ball and throw it down the field. That didn't work out. Fine. But when it came down to it in the fourth quarter, he broke off 2 major runs of 20 yards or more. Like, I was so impressed with him and his scramble ability. He's been so reluctant to scramble as a Bear, but the knowledge to just know that this is a situation, just take off and run. And he took one near the goal line down to about the 2, and then the next time he had a moment like that, he took it in for what would be the game-winning touchdown. And then I want to talk about Caleb Williams' sack avoidance. It was otherworldly in this game. He was phenomenal at avoiding pressure. That guy was not going down. It felt like they had him dead to rights like 2 or 3 times, and he got away and at least gave his guys an opportunity to make a play. Now you can say after some of these sack avoidances that he should probably be throwing the ball away unless there's a wide open receiver. And sure, that could be something that can be worked on, but the hero ball mentality is still there. I think it's going to have to take him throwing a pick like that in a play like that for him to really kind of start thinking twice about it. But I also am like, he's not afraid to rip it. I don't hate that either. He's not afraid to rip it. I'm just really hoping one of these times these hero ball throws down the sideline hits. And it's going to hit so hard. It's going to make me so excited to see one of those plays hit. But anyways, offensive line did a really good job stifling that stout front 7 for the Giants. Like, if there's one position group for this team right now that is very good, I think their front 7. They've got some guys up there. They got Brian Burns in the linebacker core. He's really good, leads the NFL in sacks. They have Kayvon Thibodeau. And they have the rookie, Abdul Carter, who's still trying to find his place on the roster, but still a name that you got to look out for. And then, of course, through all that, they still have sexy Dexter Lawrence. And by the way, all 4 of those guys are really good. But who came up to be the Giants' arguably their best defensive player in the game? A little guy who named Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. A guy who was only playing linebacker because of an injury, and he stepped up to the plate and played a very, very good game. That front 7 for the Giants was playing very well, but at the end of the day, they could not sack Caleb Williams. And he was a sack avoider. He was an escape artist all day long. That was unbelievable. Pivoting to the running offense here, I already talked about Caleb Williams, but I wanted to give a shout out to Kyle Monungai for finally getting back in the end zone after that amazing performance against Cincinnati last week. He was not rewarded with a touchdown in that game. He is this time, and I'm very happy for him. And DeAndre Swift was fine. Like, he wasn't anything terrible. Like, if this is the pace that this rushing offense is going to have for the rest of the year, I'm going to be a pretty happy guy. Because DeAndre Swift, all things considered, still averaged 6 yards per carry. He got 80 on the ground. I mean, the guy was doing a really good job just falling forward a little bit. He had that big 4th down conversion where he lowers the shoulder and absorbs some contact to pick up the first, which I know it's the big thing that the Bears fans have been very, very hard on him for, and myself included. DeAndre Swift has not been a good running back after first contact. He has found himself just not bouncing off and continuing to fall forward like he's getting pushed back. It's just, he's a bit of a pushover after first contact, but in this situation, he absorbed a hit on a big play and was able to take it for a first. I mean, seriously, there were a ton of mistakes for both sides. The Bears had a lot of drops from their receivers, but they didn't have a lot of penalties. The Giants had only really a drop or two, one of them being really crucial on that last drive Wan'Dale Robinson had in his hands, and he just couldn't hold on to it. That's a brutal one. But they took a lot of penalties. The Giants had double-digit penalties in this game, and several were very, very, very crucial to giving the Bears first downs. Like on the Bears' first touchdown drive, there was a third down play where the Bears ended up getting a first down via penalty and then ended up scoring. Which that's what the really good teams do. They take advantage of other teams' mistakes and make them pay for it. But yeah, mistakes aplenty for both sides, including on fourth down. Both teams 1 for 4 on fourth down in this game. 6 turnover on downs. That's just, woof, ouch. I can tell you with a high degree of certainty that hasn't happened in at least 2 decades. And that's what they said in the broadcast. It hadn't happened in at least 2 decades that there were 6 turnover on downs in a single game from both sides. But despite all that, the Bears find a way to get it done late again. And I want to talk about this defense for a little before we get out of here. This defense bent, but it did not break. Had a rough game, 400 yards allowed plus, but only 20 points allowed. So they were stiffening up when it mattered most. Couple of moments that they either forced the Giants away with no points or with only 3 points. And that is huge in a game like this where the offense was just really struggling to get things going until the fourth quarter. But I want to give a shout out to CJ Gardner-Johnson. This guy didn't even get here 2 weeks ago. They picked him up pretty much off the street in a sense. You know, on the waiver wire. Guys just sitting around waiting for a team to pick him up. He gets picked up by the Bears, and he's got 3 sacks in 2 games, and he had 2 sacks in this game, 1 on Jackson Dart and 1 on Russell Wilson to set up what would be the game-winning touchdown drive. I mean, seriously. And he also forced the fumble on Jackson Dart. The only turnover of the game, CJ Gardner-Johnson forced. The guy had an outstanding game, was all over the place. And funnily enough, his impact was not necessarily felt in the secondary, but in the pass rush game, which is kind of what's really funny about it. But he had a great game. He's been a great addition as a slot corner. He's played so much better than I would have expected. And I'm very pleased to see that he's come back onto an NFL field and he's starting to dominate again. And then I want to bring up 2 key plays in the end zone. First off, I want to give credit where credit's due. Gunnar knocking the ball out of Nahshon Wright's hand in a would-be interception. And at that, a pretty bad interception for Jackson Dart. Wright had it dead to rights. It was in his hands, but Gunnar with a peanut punch knocking it out before he can really do anything with it and get possession. So it saves the Giants 3 points because they would have kicked a field goal on that drive. But I want to talk about Jaquan Brisker for this one play that probably won't be talked too much when it comes to the storyline of this game. 4th and 1. Jackson Dart decides to go to the end zone as I think the Giants were either in the red zone or close to it. He goes to the end zone for Daniel Bellinger, and it's a really well-placed ball in between Byard and Brisker. But Jaquan Brisker does not give up on this play, and he's able to jar the ball loose before Bellinger completes the process of the catch. He got 1 foot down and he got a second, but he did not complete the process of the catch. Brisker does not give up, continues to wrestle at it with Bellinger, and it evidently falls to the ground and ends up being an incomplete pass. So that's 6 points off the board for the Giants. And that is probably 7 points off the board for the Giants in a huge underrated play for Jaquan Brisker in this game. Yeah, wow. That was a great way to finish a game. There are so many things to improve with this team. I have been saying it for a couple weeks, but it's not going to let me talk about the good that happens in these types of wins. There are things to improve on, and they'll work on it in practice. But at some point, I would like to see them pull away against teams they should beat. And if they go out and beat Minnesota by multiple scores next week, oh boy, they're going to be really getting my attention because they've kind of played down to competition a little bit. They've squeaked by a couple games. So I want to see them really control and dictate the pace of a game. And I also just want to see Caleb Williams dice up that Vikings defense that is pretty good as well. But if he continues to avoid sacks the way he does, if he continues to get the protection he's doing, there's that on that same play to Colston Loveland. Darnell Wright was just, you aren't getting around me to Brian Burns. He tried to spin around him, and it was just like he was not moving. A brick wall. I love Darnell Wright. That guy is so good. He was such a good pickup and a great pick in the first round. But gosh, this team continues to find ways to win. I'd like to see them win by multiple scores next week against the Vikings. And Caleb Williams said it after the game against Cincinnati that game against the Bengals was the only game that they hadn't won a shootout. They had won ugly. They've won ugly several times this season. They've won in the controlling, dominating fashion like they did against Dallas, but they haven't found a way to win comfortably against a team that is going to be really challenging them. I think the Vikings are better than their record shows. They're 4-5, but I don't think that they're a 4-5 level team. I think that they can hang around with anyone in this division. They're going to give this division a massive fight. I think this team's going to have to be fully prepared to go into a hostile environment to go and try and beat that Vikings team. But, man, I'm so impressed with how Caleb Williams played at the end of this game. I'd like to see him take control earlier. He's done a really good job this season taking control in the fourth quarter. If he can take control in the first or the second and really put this team up big at halftime, I think that this team is going to be in a much better position to continue to win. Because while there is an art to winning one-score games and it becomes a reflection of your team that you continue to come through in the clutch, eventually it's going to catch up to you if you continue to play in one-score games. You're going to drop a crucial one at some point. So I'd like to see them control a game and really play like the better team all the way through, going in as the better team. Other than that, a win's a win. Anyways, the schedule is going to heat up. The back half of the season is going to be tense. The Bears probably going to need 4 wins in their last 8 games to get into the playoffs. They've only got 2 teams under 500 as of right now left on their schedule, and that's next week against the Vikings and week 15 against the Browns. Every other team they're playing left on their schedule is over 500. We're going to really find out if this Bears team is ready for that next step over the next month and a half, 2 months. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. 9 games down, 8 to go. We'll see what the Bears are in these next 2 months against a significantly tougher schedule. Are they ready for the playoffs, or will this team need to continue to develop under Ben Johnson before trying to potentially make a splash next season? Only time will tell, but as it stands right now, the Bears are 6-3, and that's pretty cool. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and please hit that subscribe button if you really liked it and want to see more content from me. And keep the conversation going down in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel about another Bears win. They've won 6 of their last 7, and how you feel about this team going to the back half of the season. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.